Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Today is March 8th, 2023, and I'm speaking with Martin. Martin went to the Family Foundation School in Hancock, New York, in 2008. He spent 11 grueling months there. That's probably 7 months and 30 days too much.
Always.
So,
for anybody.
Right? All right, Martin, go right ahead. The floor is yours, man.
So I'm actually going to start a little bit backwards. I'm going to talk about how I came across you first. I actually speak to a therapist now, and I have been for a year, and it hasn't been till recently that I brought up my past. And I noticed when we got to the family school, he Googled it, and I realized I hadn't Googled the family school since 2015.
Okay.
And I went down this rabbit hole. I came across you. I came across all these lawsuits, and it just kind of piqued my interest. And something very coincidental, the day that I found your podcast, I went on your page, and the interview you did 2 days prior was with Andrew, who was also in Family 8, who was also there in 2008 as well with me.
And Andrew Spool, yeah.
Yep, Andrew Spool. So I was like, there's no way this is a coincidence. So I started going down the rabbit hole, and I started talking to my mom, who I want to give a shout out to, Dr. Maria Sesson. She's a psychologist. And honestly, this interview is going to be made possible by her because the amount of documentation this woman kept is incredible. Yeah. From the day that she sent me away to the day I ran away. She even kept away my runaway letter, which I'll show you later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So thank you, Mom. And so my mom was a Cuban refugee, came in the 60s, language barrier, cultural barrier. And before she had me, she had a daughter who passed away from leukemia at the age of 2. Yeah, so that takes a huge impact on a mother, on a family, and she had me, and obviously when you're dealing with the loss of a child, when you have another child, your main focus is like, this one has to live.
Okay.
Yeah, and so around like 15, 16, I started dabbling in pot. Cutting class, but this is something that my mom, like, culture shock, family all went to college, educated, for somebody to be smoking pot and, not going to school, getting bad grades is completely out of the norm for my family. And even though she's a psychologist, this is something she never dealt with. And so we're from Queens, New York, and back in, 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, it wasn't the greatest place. It's nice,
yeah,
but you had gangs, like you didn't have good influences. And so I was going to the park and hanging out with these people, and my mom just saw me going down this path, and she didn't know what to do. So I know from speaking to her, I know that she did research on her own. There was actually pamphlets that came to the house, and I remember seeing a brochure. I actually took it, burned it, and left it on the dining room table for her.
Wow.
Yeah, so I wasn't the easiest of kids to deal with. So, and like I said, she was a single mother, lost a child. And she found this place called SUWS of the Carolinas, which is a wilderness program. And if you speak to a lot of people that go to these 18-month programs, like the family school, a lot of them do start off at these wilderness programs. They're like short-term, and it's more of like a holding period. So it was June 16, 2007, and it was 8:15 in the morning, and this is back when you had VCR radios, and I remember seeing 8:15 on the VCR radio, and
I remember those days.
Yeah, right? The Blockbuster days.
Oh, yeah.
And the door opens. So I'm in my boxers on the couch because I didn't go upstairs the night before because my mom's a light sleeper, so I'm sleeping on the couch. So I'm like, oh, let me get up. And before I can even get up, there's this gigantic woman and this like hippie looking guy, like, and they just came from both directions and kind of like cornered me and like forced me to sit back down on the couch. And they're like introducing themselves. I'm like, hey, yeah, don't worry, my mom's upstairs, she'll be right back down. And I'm like going to get up and they're like holding me down. And I'm like, excuse me. And at that point, my mom's coming down and she's just holding a book bag. Oh. And she just hands me the book bag crying and doesn't even say bye, nothing, walks out the door. So I got dressed and it was, so they have to take me to the car, and I had these like, it's like in New York, you have these stoops, and they were holding me by the belt loop. And like my first instinct, I'm like, if I just jump, like I can make it. But I had this lady, like she had to be like 200 pounds behind me, holding me by the belt loop, like making sure I'm not going nowhere. And yeah, so we ended up making it to LaGuardia. And so at this point, all they're telling me is your mom loves you. It's all the same like cliche quotes. Your mom's doing this because she loves you. You're going to a safe place. You're going to somewhere where they're going to help you.
A little tough love.
This is for your, you know, it's all cliche phrases that they use.
Yeah.
So we get to LaGuardia, and I have to find it here because I have the second one that they did, but they have these custody agreements that, so essentially my mom signs waivers for my transportation. So I come with documentation when they're transporting me. And this is like, 2007. So you're still kind of like post 9/11, still like kind of frail. We didn't even we bypassed TSA. They showed paperwork and we were in our terminal, no security, nothing.
Wow.
Dude, these people are efficient. I don't know what they do, but they showed paperwork to TSA and we just went through. And so I ended up taking a flight to, I think it was like Charleston, North Carolina. And at this point, the woman had left to go do another job. So I'm with this like 90-pound hippie dude with dreads. And like, so we're on this flight and he rents a car. I didn't know that we were going to a place called Old Fort, North Carolina, which was like a 3.5-hour drive. And this man goes, I'm going to play an audiobook for you and you're going to really love it. I was, at that point I was miserable. Like, I was sick to my stomach. Like, you're feeling a rush of emotions. This is when like, now I'm like, I'm a city kid driving through no man's land. Oh yeah. And it starts to hit me and I'm like, where am I? Like, I have no like experience being in the woods. And then this guy stops in the middle of the road to pick up a dead snake. And I'm like, what is going, I'm like, I can't comprehend what's going on in my life at this point. Like, mind you, I'm woken up and it's only been like 6 hours by the time like we get there. And so we do the whole intake process. They strip you down, do all this stuff. And they wanted to take me to the home base. And at this point, I think it was like a smack in the face reality check. Like, what the hell is going on? And I darted and I started just running down. I don't even know. It was a road and these guys were fast, man. The guy immediately put me in a full Nelson, like where I couldn't like move at all. He lifted me off the ground. And this was the first time I experienced a full-blown panic attack. I literally thought I was going to die. I could not breathe. I like thought I was going to pass out. Like I was telling him, I'm going to die. I'm going to die.
You were hyperventilating.
Oh yeah, dude. And I never experienced that before. So finally, when I calmed down, they introduce you to the group, and it's sad when you see it. It's like this open like area in the woods, but there's trees everywhere, and these kids are like huddled up next to the trees. How I explain it, they look like Gollum from like the Lord of the Rings, just like curled over. And yeah. And so as I'm there, I guess there's 4 phases. So you have the safety phase, individual phase, community phase, and responder. How they promote this program is a 28-day program, 7 days for each, phase.
Okay.
I'm there not even a few hours, and people are telling me, yeah, this is my 72nd day. Oh, I've been here 163 days. Oh, I'm on 120. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so I try to fake like a medical emergency. I tell them like, I'm not having any bowel movements. Like, they called my bluff. It kind of delayed me. And then finally I was like, you know what? I just need to get home. I'm not only gonna do this program, I'm gonna get out of here as fast as possible. I'm gonna get out of here in the 28 days. So you go from the field to your group, and you do hiking. You have to do all these like tasks. You have to build fires with like quartz and steel. You have to bow drill, set traps, all this stuff. And then so that's like kind of your daily routine. So I'm doing all this stuff as perfect as I can and doing everything to the T, to the point that these people had to start making things up for me to do. And
you were just going right. You were just rushing through that program.
Dude, so building traps, I built traps, and then they're like, all right, do it one-handed. I would do it one-handed. They do it blindfolded. Do it blindfolded one-handed. They had me hang upside down from a tree, blindfolded with one hand, because they literally ran out of things to do for me.
Yeah.
And now looking back, I realized they were just trying to delay my progress, because as I look at the invoices, you can see how they're milking it. No one is going to finish in 28 days, and they make sure of that.
Yeah.
So, over here I have, because my mom also did psychological evaluation on me. She did the whole 9 while I was there. And, just to break this down, this is SUWS of the Carolinas. I was there 51 days. 51 days. They billed my mother $13,875 for psychological services. $14,000 on psychological services for 51 days. They broke it down per hour, so they billed her 130 hours of, therapy. I saw one person that was able to practice legally, and I only saw him 3 times during my 51 stay. They have me billed here for group therapy, individual therapy, family therapy, sometimes for 2 to 3 hours in a day.
Did your mom contest it?
No. So at that point, my mom just needed me to survive. Like, that was her main goal. She's like, she couldn't lose me, and she was gonna do any. So she has this fear already in her. Now, as she goes and gets introduced to these types of programs, they smell the fear, and they hook, line, and sinker.
Yep.
They had my mom, and they just fed on her fear and gave her more. So my mom signed a check without even blinking an eye. And you know what? That I'm her son. And she feels that she's the type of mother that she will do anything for her child. And I think she's more than proven that. And it just she's a little more passive, where she's not like really pressing into these kinds of things. But to me, to see, like, I went to a therapeutic institution, I'm considered a high risk, child. I obviously went there for traumas. That's why children become troubled.
Right.
You would expect some sort of therapy. And they billed her 14 grand for it, but I didn't get any therapy. And I literally have, it's 3 pages here of group and just group therapy, individual therapy. And, I'm trying to figure out how they rationalize it, because I had camp counselors, but they're not legally allowed to provide, therapeutic services to me.
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
So, and if I only saw a real therapist 3 times, where are you getting these other numbers from? So that's kind of my bone to pick with SUWS. And, for a lot of parents, I know this is like almost like a starting off point. And I feel terrible for what my mom had to go through, because they used her fear against her. And I'm sure that they use a lot of parents' fears against them. And, the first thing over here that they recommend in the treatment program. So we did all this psychological evaluations. I went through all this therapy supposedly. And, I get to the end, and what's the specific course of treatment recommended, right?
Yeah.
Number 1, following his placement at SUWS, Martin would likely benefit most from placement in a structural academic environment, such as an emotional growth boarding school. Do you want to know what recommendations 2 to 6 are? They are recommendations of what that boarding school should have.
Oh, man.
There is not one recommendation that leads to me going anywhere except a therapeutic boarding school. They gave my mother no other option. So it
sounds a bit fishy to me.
Oh, dude, they're getting people, and then they pass on. And so 51 days, just to be transparent, was $45,000. 51 days, $45,000.
Wow.
Almost 14,000 to psychological treatment, of which I got 3 sessions. It's a complete scam. They're still open to this day. The only thing I can say is, hiking is cool, building traps is cool, learning how to make fires is cool. But, there should have been treatment. And then on top of that, this was I'm getting sent away for pot and, misbehaving. Now I'm being introduced to people. I was in there with a diamond thief who was evading. He's lucky he was evading federal prison because he stole 250,000 pair of canary diamond earrings. A guy who ran a meth lab, coke heads, stuff I've never eaten. Like in Queens, New York, everybody just smokes a blunt and maybe drinks a 40. Very few people get into the really hard drugs. So right. I was never exposed to any of this.
That's a totally different atmosphere there. I mean, pot smoking, drinking, it's one thing, but the harder drugs, heroin, meth, cocaine, whatever, that's totally, let's say, like the other side of the tracks type of thing, stuff you wouldn't see,
Yeah. And I, you would think everybody's tons of drugs in New York, never experienced it. And so finally I get sent away out of New York, and it's the first time I'm even hearing about it. So we do this graduation at SUWS, and they had already planned, for me to go to another school. It was actually a school in New Hampshire called, I think, Shortridge Academy. I haven't heard too much about them. I don't really have a story to tell about them. When they were doing my intake, my mom and my aunt, my mom and my cousin felt so guilty about like how it looked and leaving me there that they stormed in the intake room and ripped me out and peeled off. So I kind of got saved out of the one program. But yeah, after that, I ended up at a normal boarding school where I ended up getting kicked out. I had like a pack of cigarettes and like some pot. And there was a random search. It was my roommate who told on me. He ended up telling me like 10 years later. Yeah, via face.
Yeah, 10 years too late, man.
Dude, I told him, I was like, you ruined my life. Because right after that is when I got sent to the family school.
The family school.
So, yeah, so after that, I got kicked out of that boarding school. They sent me to Pennsylvania to stay with my uncle. And I think my uncle was trying to fight for my mom to let me stay with him. And this is on my father's side of the family. And I don't think my mom was having it. And one day we were just sitting on the porch and it was just very quiet. Black Chevy Impala pulls up. 2 ex-cops look like literally picture perfect New York undercover cops come out, bald head, stocky. And I already knew it. And I just looked at my uncle and I see him crying and they had my bags packed.
Oh, jeez.
And
deja vu all over again. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So second time, this is the one I have the bill for. So this escort service, it's a 3-hour drive. It was $1,800. So they got paid $600 an hour to drive me.
Well, that's not the escort service that I would have liked to take me.
Dude, I could have spent a lot less and got a lot more for my money.
Definitely.
Right? But yeah, dude, we were in the car. They were driving me. They're like, oh, not a lot of people like know that they're going to these programs. And
so
I'm like,
is this from your house that they got you? You went back to your home?
No, my mom would not let me go back to my house. From the second she sent me to Wilderness, I hadn't stepped foot in my house.
Okay.
She wouldn't allow that. And this was an uncle's house in Pennsylvania.
Gotcha.
And these escorts, they actually thought I knew. They thought I was waiting for them. I was like, I had no idea. And they were like, well, thank you for not like flipping out. And at that point, it was like almost like a sense of defeat. Like I knew it was over. And so we get to the family school and then that's when they do the intake. And so yeah, strip search, naked. I had a kid, Kevin, who was like my sponsor. And it's funny, Lenny was actually in my intake. I think you had interviewed him a while ago. Yeah.
Yes, I remember Lenny. Yes.
Yeah, he was actually in my intake. So they do all that, and we go to dinner. And so my first experience is, so we're at dinner, and I'm reserved and like not knowing what to do. And I remember the first thing I do, they give me a plate, and I go to the girl, I tap the girl next to me. Can you pass the juice? And she whips over and screams at me and she goes, you can't touch me. And I said, okay, well, can you still pass the juice? And she's like, yeah, but you're not allowed to touch me. And I'm like, I get that point. Like, but all I want is the juice. Like, yeah. And so like at this point, I'm like, I'm getting defensive and, so I guess they saw that like, I wasn't eating. I was kind of getting hostile. So they wanted to give me a tour of the school, like gymnasium. They had, tasks to do. People with responsibilities had tasks to do. So my sponsor was one and Lenny tagged along. And so it was pitch dark and I fell into a sewer grate. Oh. And so it went up to my shin and it hurt really bad, and I was like limping and I could feel a dent in my leg. And so I go to the nurse and I wasn't thinking about this until the other day. And so I go to the nurse and I'm like, my leg, I fell through the sewer grate. This is my first day, mind you. I'm like, I have a dent in my leg. She's like, oh yeah, that's your skin. It'll go back out. and like it hurt. And I'm like, this isn't like, you know, I played sports. I'm like, this isn't like a natural dent. She's like, no, you'll be fine. It's 16 years later, I still have a dent in my leg. And you know, it's I call it like, it was like a generalized neglect. Just because you're dealing with high risk students, you dismiss everybody on a certain level. And it's a generalized neglect that every single student faced. You know what?
Yeah, it's one of those things where if they think that it's not something that you know is harming to you, they think it's just something that's just going to heal on its own. They'll just they'll do it that way, you know, not knowing. I mean, what kind of credentials did this person have? Was she a registered nurse? Was she a nurse practitioner? What was she?
If you go, so I don't know how accurate the website is, but I found a list of, you know, staff members and what their titles were. And honestly, and then also I go on archive.com. If anybody wants to check out old family, the family school website, it's the family foundation or the familyschool.org. And you can go on archive.com. You can see the staff members, what their titles were, what their credentials were. I was even looking at their therapist because this is a therapeutic boarding school. Do you think I at least saw a therapist, you know, 3 times in 51 days? I didn't see a therapist at the family school.
Oh, you didn't?
No. We had sponsors. We had sponsors. You talk to your sponsor. You know, like the
sponsors who were not therapists.
Who are not therapists, who have probably criminal records, bare education. Some of them obviously had educations because they were teachers. So they, you know, they had to have some credentials, but I mean, you need licensing. You need to be you have to have certain credentials and practice under somebody with a license to be able to do this stuff.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but you know, my political science teacher, Jason, who I forgot if it was Andrew or Lenny who had mentioned him, the guy who was trying to be a politician. He was my sponsor.
Oh, it may have been Lenny, I think. I'm not too sure.
And this guy has no idea. I wouldn't even talk to him. He actually would have to pull me and say, you know, you need to talk to me. And I'm like, about what? What are you going to do to help me? Like, I don't understand. And, you know, it was very interesting what Andrew, I think you asked Andrew and how Andrew was answering. You had like asked him, what was the point of everything? What was the point? What did they want from you? And Andrew was like, I don't know. And the second he said that, it hit me. I was like, they had no fucking clue what they wanted out of us. That they just started making shit up as they went along.
Yeah. Actually, I think what they wanted was your mom's paycheck. Basically.
Oh my God. That I have the invoices for that. So room and board and educational services alone is $5,200.
A month?
A month. You want to know how petty they are? They charge $10 for a haircut. They charged $6 for a sports bag. They charged, mind you, my mom was the type, my mom was into care packages. She sent me shampoos, pens, notebooks, everything. I didn't need anything from this school. They would charge me every month, school store, $30. I didn't get anything from them. They're just billing my mom. And my mom, you know, like I said, she's trying to keep me alive. So she signs a check. I was there 11 months. You go off of you're looking at $5,500 a month. I mean, you're looking at that's 60,000. So, and then the 51 days that I spent in the wilderness, my mom spent over $100,000 in 13 months for therapy for me. I'm 32 years old now. I'm paying out of pocket for therapy to deal with this shit. And I didn't think it was ever an issue. I just lived my life until one day I'm like, you know, maybe something is affecting me. And I started to go over things with my therapist, and, you know, I shake like I have Parkinson's. That's not normal. I have hypohidrosis. That's not normal.
What is that?
You know, so when you sweat, like I sweat from my
Oh,
palms, my feet, my armpits, like, you know, I have high anxiety, like super anxiety. And it's funny, you know, they mentioned it in the SUWS, you know, psychological evaluation. They actually said they kept mentioning low self-esteem and anxiety. But when it came to the diagnosis, all they used was cannabis dependency and parental conflict, because low self-esteem and anxiety require actual therapy, because the low self-esteem would be, you know, a symptom of depression, and you know, and anxiety, those are things that need to be treated. But the cannabis and the hey, you're having conflicts with your kid, you send them away, you know, and then he's away from the drugs, but they're not dealing with the real issues.
well, you know, I've smoked pot before, and it really cures depression. Let me tell you,
Dude, I
and it
mean,
cures anxiety too. You know,
you know, can it, so it's I mean, I smoke pot. I like, you know, it is what it is.
it is what it is.
I also go, I see a therapist once a week. I see a psychiatrist. You know, I take medication for anxiety. You know, it's meant, I realized everything in this world is all about spectrums, right? Everything is, the spectrum of whatever it is these days. Mental health is the true spectrum here.
It's a wide spectrum too.
Dude, it could be you stubbing your toe to, hey, I don't feel like living here anymore. And then and there's everything in between. And so, you know, there's a lot that needs to be addressed and taken care of. And, you know, these programs are meant to do that, and they cause more trauma. No, go on. Sorry.
Were you ever abused physically?
No.
No.
So I want to say the sexual abuse and the physical abuse never happened to me. You know, God bless the people who went through that. I know that's their fight. And you have my support. You have, you know, my power behind you. You know, I think my battle is, you know, the emotional trauma that these places leave on people. 2015, I told you, was the last time I checked on the Family Foundation School. It's funny, you know, jails have a statistic that you have a 70% chance of a return rate. And in 2015, I'm seeing a Facebook page that says there's 180 something students that had died from the family school, you know, and I'm like, so now I'm thinking, I'm like, there's no statistics, but obviously you can see a death rate, and I can guarantee there's an incarceration rate because I'm part of that incarceration rate.
Right. It's really strange that you know, it took this long for the state to get involved. I mean, hypothetical. You said your mom's a
Psychologist.
psychologist. Can you imagine if her percentage of suicide with her clients was 70%? They'd fire her immediately. They would take away her license. Why not this place? You know what I mean? If it's got a 70% suicide rate, why is this place still open? Why didn't the state get involved sooner?
It's, you know, and I think you had brought it up in previous interviews. Loopholes.
Yeah.
Everything is loopholes. You know, because like I said,
no disrespect to your mom, it was just a hypothetical. So I'm sure.
No.
I'm sure she's a lovely lady.
no, she's
Okay.
good. She's good.
All right.
She's good. But yeah, dude, you know, you sorry, I lost track.
Loopholes. You said loopholes.
Yes. So when I looked up the archive on the family school, it says therapeutic boarding school. When you looked up, when it switches to Allenwood Academy, it says camp. So, you know, now I remember you were saying their Catholic schools can hide behind religious, you know, laws.
Exemption, yeah.
Exemptions. And then I'm thinking, I'm like, yeah, a camp. You call it a camp. Now you just have counselors. They don't have to have licenses.
No.
They're just camp counselors. You know, so there definitely are loopholes around this stuff. And, you know, it's hard, like, because you're like, there's so many battles. Obviously, you have the people that have the battles with the abuse. I know that there's a lot of court processes that I was listening to that are coming up, but it's one of the things I was thinking. It's like it's it's almost like impossible to beat them. That I was even thinking, I'm like, why not join them, right? But do it right. So I don't know. I know there was a previous woman that went, Liz, and I know she's a psychologist. But yeah, you know what? I'm like, hey, if I feel this strongly about it, maybe I should do something about it. So you know what? I'm enrolling in school. See if I can get a psychology degree and maybe do some help. See what can change, right? See what I can do. Because like I said, I'm not the person that's gonna have a voice in court unless somebody wants to represent me for like fraud or something, like. So, but yeah, yeah. So it's just an ongoing process for me. I actually even started a blog where I do my writings, because it's hard, and I noticed when you do the interviews, it's a lot of these stories are generalized and it's hard to think of certain things at the moment. But through my writing, I remember certain stories. And I felt that I was able to tell my story better in dividing it into specific stories. So yeah, that's an outlet that I've been using, and a way to get my story out there. And I'm glad that you have me on here, because I want to get exposure. And yeah, not only was there the physical, the sexual, the mental abuse, but there's also fraud here. And yeah, you know what? There's multiple angles that these places can get taken down. And I don't think it was a coincidence, like I said, that me coming across your path and Andrew's path and Lenny's path. So I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad I'm doing this with you, man.
The old saying is hit him in the pocketbook. That's take the legs out from under him. So
that's how you do it.
Yeah,
dude.
And you were talking about naming it a camp. It's just their way of rebranding themselves, trying to hopefully if we rebrand ourselves as this, within a certain amount of time, a short period of time, everybody's just going to forget about this other stuff. But little do they realize that what's on the internet is on the internet for a long time, and people are angry. And they want to find some way of taking this school down. I don't think they realized it, but I'm not even sure. It's not even open. It's rebranded as Allenwood Academy.
But it's actually Allenwood was closed. Well, Allenwood was closed also. I think finally they closed everything down in 2014.
Good.
Yeah, and I actually escaped that era of the abuse, because there was a gentleman who testified in Congress, I think in 2008. And I don't want to disrespect him because I don't know his name off the top of my head. And I know he passed away, so I don't want to disrespect him. But yeah, that was the year. So, he was a blessing for me to avoid certain abuses there. But yeah.
So tell us about the escape.
So I did my time. I knew from day one, the second I walked in there, that I was running away.
Okay, before you continue, what was, if the stay? How long were you supposed to stay at this place?
So this is why I ran away.
Okay.
So the way the time that I got sent there, they have 2 graduations. I think one in December, one in June. It is a minimum 18-month program, minimum. Okay. And there is no exception to that rule because I asked. And so my first semester there was spring of 2008. And this is a completion of every single high school class. I at this point, this is 6 months in. I had finished high school, right? So this would be months 6 through 12. They had me in every single college class that they offer, right?
Okay.
That's 12 months. What do you have to offer me after that?
Yeah.
Oh, we have work study. That put me at 17 months, even with the work study. So I would have not only completed their entire high school program, their entire college program, their entire work study program, and they still wouldn't have released me just because of the dates of the graduation. I would have been there for, I think it would have been 22 or 23 months. And I'm like, this is stupid. I'm done high school. And like I said, I did I knew I was going to run away. And in this place, like, you're walking on eggshells. So I tried to be perfect. And that's actually a trauma that I face now, and it's actually a character flaw, because I expect people to be on a certain level that I am. Like, and it's not good to build relationships, because this place had me thinking that okay, if I'm perfect, I can get by and I can get out. All I need to do is be perfect. And so I do everything perfect, and then they tell me, oh, well, you're not going to go on a home visit. And this is because, again, my mom didn't trust me. So we went to my sister's house in Westchester, New York. And so she has 2 young kids. We stayed with her. It was, I think, it was 2 nights, 3 days, 2 nights. So I knew I had 2 days to escape. I was going to try to get it done the first day. Just, if I got caught, I at least had the second day. Then that first day I get there, they tell me my grandmother from Uruguay was visiting and that she would like to see me. And she was like, almost 90, she was on her way out. And I'm like, oh man. So I actually stayed the first night to see my grandma the second. And so the second night, it's the middle of the night, my sister lent me her kids' room with bunk beds. So I'm on the top bunk and my mom's on the bottom. And my mom is a light sleeper. Like, that's why at the beginning I told you I slept on the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because she's a light sleeper. So I knew that's why I needed 2 nights, because I was like, I knew things were gonna go wrong. I actually went down the bunk bed and she's staring at me, eyes wide open.
Wow, every little sound, every little bump, she hears it.
Dude, so I go to the bathroom, but then when I climb back up on the bunk, I actually sit on the edge, so that way they're like, all I have to do is come down rather than like roll, and I only wait like 15-20 minutes, because I'm like, oh, a lot of people typically go to bed quick. And I'm like, I actually kind of have to get out of here, because at 4 a.m, that's when she's like kind of choppy. She wakes up a lot easier. So I hopped down. She was eyes closed. I went in her purse and I took $80 from her purse, and I left her a note, which I have a picture of it here. She actually kept the original copy of my runaway note, which is pretty interesting. All right. Yeah. So it says, sorry, I can't take it anymore. We'll call soon. Sorry for all the trouble. I'll explain later. Love, Martin. So I don't know if the camera's picking it up.
I'll tell you what, if you send it to me, I could put it in the edit.
Yeah.
That way people can see it.
Yeah, so I left her that, and then so my sister lived across the street from a train station, and I already knew that was no good. So I walked the train station to the next town, and it's like a 40-minute walk. I actually get on the train, and I'm terrified because 2 cops pull up, sitting in the train station, and I actually met a guy on the train, an older gentleman, and he's like, why are you he knew something was wrong, and and I told him, and he's like, it's not my business, but do you mind if I pray for you? And he prayed for me, and I'm like, all right. We ended up Grand Central. I ended up going to a friend's house and staying with him for a little bit. And finally, I called my mom. And the family school was telling my mom, go to the police, go to the police, go to the police. So my mom went to the police station, and you know how New York cops are assholes. So off the bat, they started treating her and me like as if like I'm an escaped criminal, and like looking at her like, you know, treating her disrespectfully.
Like an accomplice, basically.
Yeah. So she goes, you know what? Never mind. She called the family school, and she's like, I'm not sending him back. And she kind of let me just go do what I needed to do. And I'll tell you, things got a lot worse after the family school. And I'm sure it happened for a lot of people. Things got a lot worse. It was a breeding ground. It was a breeding ground. You know, you're exposing kids. I mean, we were there with 12 kids from 12 years old, all the way up to, there was one kid that was there. He was there on court order. His name was B-Boy. He was 20 years old at one point. Yep. He ended up having to go to a real like jail, but he was there for like 2-3 months. A 20-year-old in the same school as a 12-year-old, bunking in the same dorms. You know, these places, they ran without care. They ran without care. And I know you heard, and it was funny because I used to call them trials, but I didn't realize they were called table topics. And I know that Lenny and Andrew had brought up the table topics.
Yeah.
And dude, that is, like looking back at it, it is one of the most messed up things you can do to a child. I mean, it was literally a suggestion box. You're encouraged to snitch. And I was talking to a buddy of mine, and it was like, you know, because you had the head of the table and then the students. And it's like, you know, rather than watching TV with dinner, you throw on court TV, but you have real kids going at it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was like, is this entertainment for them? Because to be honest, a lot of the times the adults didn't put their input. You know, a lot of times nothing came out of it except humiliation. You know, and I thought I was weird telling my therapist about like, yeah, masturbation gets brought up. and then I'm listening to Andrew and Lenny, and I'm like, holy, like this was common practice. And yeah, you know, I didn't really get brought up much. I actually found a letter I wrote to my mom, and it just shows how brainwashed you become. I'm like, yeah, somebody wrote me up because I wasn't cleaning. But the thing is, I took responsibility and did the tables and chairs and did my part and sat down. And then here I am, and I'm like, you know what? But I reacted, you know, and I should have been more of a leader. And here I am apologizing for myself, even though I did the work. And I'm like, I was completely brainwashed. The integrity, the honesty, you know, the stuff that they shove down your throat, you know, it's not right because, you know, so I know that they told you like everything was based off the big book, right?
Yeah, the big book. Yeah, I've heard about that.
So, the black book, by the way. So the founder bill, not a lot of people know this, but back in like the 20s, they did experimental treatment with psilocybin. And they noticed that it had a profound effect on people with substance abuse, like alcoholism. Well, the founder bill was part of the experiments in the 20s. And so he underwent psilocybin treatment. For those that's magic mushrooms. He was tripping, and you know, in a therapy session, he was tripping. You know, he was part of an experiment. It was after he was tripping that he quit alcohol and founded AA. And I don't know if you've taken mushrooms before,
No.
but so there's, for those who have, there's portions that can become very dark. And it's almost like an internal darkness and like a blanket darkness that like comes over you. And what the big book is trying to do is it's trying to get you to see that darkness. So this man is using stuff he learned off of tripping on mushrooms as the foundation to a recovery program.
Right.
And then we're teaching this recovery program to children. And like, it's one thing as an adult to, I don't know if you know the steps, but like, there's a lot of internal like things that you have to dig in deep, and you have to take accountability for certain things, and you have to apologize, and it really makes you look down deep, and it pretty much like you have to, hey, I'm a piece of shit. Like, that's how you have to break yourself down to that point.
Yeah.
And you're telling 12-year-olds to 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds to do this. And you're breaking them down to nothing. And this is while they're developing. And these are children that are high risk to begin with. So you literally are just creating monsters. And like, I'm blessed to be in the position that I'm at now. And it's not like I'm in a very good position. Like, it's scraping by. Like I said, I have to see a therapist. I have to be on medication. These are things that like I now have to talk about, things that I have to explore, because these are things that have affected me. Like I said, I shake, I sweat, my head's on a swivel when I'm at a restaurant. I'm very on edge. And it takes a toll, like on relationships.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially relationships.
Yeah.
It almost seems like these guys were complete sadists. They took absolute pleasure in watching
all for the money.
Yep. Watching kids go at each other, like with the table topics and all that. They said it may have been a trial. It may have been, something that you guys didn't want to do, but I think to the staff members, they absolutely took pleasure in it. I don't know why. Sadists, maybe masochists. I don't know.
No, and you get to a point like where they want you to step up in the program, right? They want you to advance. So they tell you need to start holding. This is what they use. You need to start holding people accountable.
Yeah.
So I have to snitch on people, is what you're saying. And I actually asked, like, it was a young kid. He was always getting in trouble. I was like, do you mind if I like write you up, bring you up, like just over something like stupid? Because like they're literally telling me like, hey, if you want to advance in the program, you have to be a leader. You have to like, show accountability. And I'm like, that's not my responsibility. And there wasn't even an event that we were left on Saturdays with limited staff. We had this lady named Barb. She had to be like well into her 60s, morbidly obese. She's in the bathroom while two kids are fighting and like going at it. And I'm like, no one's doing anything because no one. And I'm like, so I have to be the one to like hold one kid down, like restrain him. I'm like, this is not my place. I don't care. I don't care if you guys like are going at it, but like, this lady's gonna come out. She came out and they're still fighting and she didn't know what to do. She didn't do anything. So I'm like, you're completely useless. Then one of us has to do this.
I guess you could have sat on him.
She could have sat on him.
That's what I'm saying. But see, the thing is, in any job you work, okay, and I've been at one job for 20 years, but other jobs that I've worked at, you don't get ahead as far as climb up the ladder by snitching on people. You get ahead by hard work, determination, not snitching on people, because when you snitch on people, they don't trust you. Nobody trusts you anymore. They can't tell you anything,
I mean, if you see, I mean, what it actually hurt me listening to Andrew Spools, um, because his table topic, and I remember when he was talking about like what was humiliating to him, and I remember when he had to introduce himself. Hi, my name is Andrew Spool, and I'm not as smart as I think I am. And you know, back then, me and Andrew Spool actually kind of like were going tit for tat, like with education, because you know he's very intelligent. You see how he speaks,
Yeah.
and you know they used that against him and used humiliation tactics. And listening to that, I was like, I started to realize I was like, what I for the last 16 years that I've just been taking as, yeah, this is just something that happened in my life. Now I'm starting to realize like this was not okay. This was not okay. And people are suffering. And you know, like I'm sure there are people that like came out successful, this, that, the other. And then, you know, like they either don't want to be bothered with dealing with this, or like then what are they going to say? They attribute it to the camps. But I can guarantee you it does not matter the person that left any of these programs where you are in life. I can guarantee you're dealing with some sort of mental health, like, you know, concerns.
Yeah.
That we all are. We all are. Whether you're suppressing it, whether you're not, every student that's gone there, you know, and we should be being offered, like we should be going to court, being offered like, hey, you should be guaranteed 2 years of therapy because you know what? This was messed up. You
Yeah.
know what? And the way they set it up, they have it set up 18-month program so that way it perfectly aligns with your 18th birthday, and then they wash their hands.
There you go. Yep.
So, you know,
We screw you up mentally and then just show you the door. There you
yeah.
go.
And here I am now, like as an adult, you have to pay out of pocket just to fix my brain. When these people, when they charge tens of thousands of dollars for the help and got none of it.
Therapy's not cheap.
No, dude.
No.
Even if you run on high numbers, in this is 2008, these numbers, they still had a budget for actual therapy. You're like every week they could have had a budget for therapy and still made, you know, I calculated what, you know, over for 200 students, they were doing $14.5 million a year. You're not going to tell me you can't have a staff of, you know, maybe 5 therapists, you know?
Yeah. That 14.5, it doesn't sound too shabby there.
Dude, they were killing it. Killing it.
Yeah.
And you know, you had parents, like I know there was a lot of parents that were well off. Like, you know, my mom here, there's financing paper. My mom pulled out mortgages, refinanced the house, you know, but there was parents just paying it. Yeah. $6,000 a month just coming in. 200
Wow.
students. And none of us got the help we needed.
Yeah.
Messed up.
Yeah, it is. We got about 2 or 3 more minutes, Martin. One thing I want to ask you, um, how is your relationship with your mom now? Is it better?
Yeah, so I'll be completely honest. I haven't lived with my mother since I was 16. I never went back. It wasn't like I did stay with her. It's not like it's just like other life opportunities. But I talk to my mother from 1 to 3 times a day. That is my number one. I learned my lesson when I got out of jail, and since that day, I learned that throughout everything, she has always been the constant. So I have to give her that. And I make sure I call her every single day, multiple times a day, tell her I love her. And yeah, we have a great relationship.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. And
Because I tell you, you know, my mom died 2 years ago. Trust me.
Sorry, man.
That's okay. But I know exactly what you're talking about, you know. sometimes, you know, but she'd call me up on my birthday. My birthday is actually tomorrow. And
Hey, happy early birthday, bud.
thank you. But, you know,
I know, I know.
I know that, you know, she's not going to call. So I cherish the days, the years that I, would talk to her on the phone or have conversation. Believe me, if I could get those back, oh man, I'd give anything. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Having a good relationship with your parents is essential. Because they're not going to be here. You know, your whole
And
life.
and I learned, and like, so I became a parent, and so like, we're Latino, so my mom always said to me in Spanish, "Un día vas a aprender." One day you're gonna learn, and boy, did I learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll do anything for your kids, and she proved that, and she's my ride or die. She's my number one. And I also have to, thank my wife, my two beautiful children. I actually had to kick them out for this, because if not, it would have been a circus. But yeah, they've been the support that I needed throughout all this. And yeah, like, if I can leave with a message is, if anybody, went through all this stuff, like, seek help. Just talk to somebody, because it doesn't matter whether it was sexual abuse, physical. We all went through trauma, and that trauma needs to be dealt with. I don't know if it's cool. Do you mind if I like put my blog? If I say my
Yeah.
blog?
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, go. You can say it, but when we're done here, send me the link so I can
Yeah,
put it in the description below. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. Go ahead.
So my blog is hidadbydad.com, like hi dad, bye dad. Like, so that's my blog, and I do the stories about the wilderness. And then I also have YouTube, where I do like stupid little videos with my wife. That's also hi dad, bye dad. And Instagram as well. If you want to reach out to me, like if you're ex at family school, or if you guys just want to, you know, shoot the shit, you can reach out to me on my Instagram, DM me. That's also hi dad, bye dad. So yeah, all across the board, hi dad, bye dad.
Okay. Well, just send me the links anyway, so we can put it in the description. That way, people can see it and click on it and you know get a hold of you. So,
Yeah.
all
No,
right.
yeah. I think it's important we all get our stories out there, and I wanted to thank you, man, for allowing me this time. And it was great talking to you.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Like I said, just to see, I've always thought that the best therapy was to just get it out. Get it off your
Yeah.
chest because it lightens the load a little bit. I mean, everybody deals with trauma. Some people deal with it differently. I believe it doesn't fully go away. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's
Yeah.
something that you can manage, something you can deal with. You know,
And
um,
that's why we need the tools and resources.
right, right.
And I know that you're getting a lot. I saw from the other day on your live. So people bringing up those resources, that's amazing. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, but before you can do anything, you have to take care of this.
Oh yeah, definitely. Don't
So,
rely on those shysters that just want to take your money.
yo, no, no. And now I live my life. There is no one that knows me better than me. And I don't care what kind of doctor you are. I don't care how long you went to school. This is a team project. We're using your education and my knowledge of me. There's no more doctors telling me what to do anymore. I don't allow it. And that's part of probably the trauma of the family school, you know?
Yeah, it could be.
But no, again, thank you, man. And I don't know. I'll throw it out there. I don't know if you still talk to Andrew or Lenny. A lot of stories come up when different people from the same place might have ideas to bounce off of. If you wanted to maybe set something up, if like that would be something they would do, because I think like Andrew sparks some memories in me, and maybe I can spark some in him, and we have some more stuff to go off of. If that's
Sure.
something that would be cool.
Yeah, we could. Uh, I could probably get a hold of Lenny, and Andrew. Yeah, we could do like have 4 people come on and sure.
Yeah, I mean, we were all there, same time, same group. It's just because it's easier to bounce the ideas and it triggers memories.
Right.
So, it might be a good conversation.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I'll take a look at it and I'll see if I can contact Lenny. I know I can contact Andrew. I got his information. So.
So I'm going to text you and I'm going to ask for his because I want to reach out to him, say hi.
Okay. Sure.
All right.
All right. So
Thank you again.
Well, let me go ahead and close it out. Don't hang up just yet. I'm going to speak to you for really fast after the podcast. Okay. Like I want to thank Martin for coming on. I appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. Was it Hi Dad, Bye Dad?
Yeah, Hi Dad, Bye Dad.
Subscribe to his channel, like his videos. And like I said, for the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. Thank you for watching. Be sure to take care of yourself, take care of each other. We'll see you in the next podcast. All right? You take it easy.
Cheers.
All right.